Today, I'm going to be talking about the top 10 summer stock trout fishing mistakes that you need to avoid. Now, we're starting out the list with a really good one at number 10, which is using the usual suspect baits. And we're talking about spinners and power bait and eggs and night crawlers. You know, there's those usual core stock trout fishing baits that you think of, that you have a gazillion different colors and baits of in the store, or that you have in your tackle box at home. And quite frankly, it's a mistake to be using those usual suspect type of baits. In the summer, when the trout can be a lot more finicky or hard to catch, especially when the waters really start to warm up, it's actually better and sometimes even the best option to go out and try some of those baits that you don't normally use. I'm talking about the trout magnet, which is a really solid bait in all different kinds of bodies of waters and conditions. I'm talking about spoons. I'm talking about jigs under bobbers, you know, baits that you have in your tackle box that you see you don't typically go to as a first go-to bait. And especially when you're fishing in really clear water in alpine lakes, creeks, and streams, you want to be as stealthy as possible. And sometimes fishing under bobbers, especially with jigs, is really effective. And even fishing with spoons, little other baits that flutter, again, baits that other anglers aren't typically using that often. Now, I believe that one of the best baits to be fishing in the summertime is the trout magnet. It's not typically a bait that a lot of anglers are always using, but it fishes so effective in every body of water and condition, and there's so many different colors you could choose from. I just believe it's a deadly effective bait in the summertime, and you shouldn't make the mistake of not fishing with the trout magnet or those unusual types of baits. Now, coming in at mistake number 9 is missing or skipping the early morning bite. And in the summertime, we all know that it's a lot warmer, the weather's a lot nicer, but with the warmer weather comes warmer waters, and the trout don't necessarily like that. So the best time and best opportunities to actually fish are in the early part of the morning when you've got those cooler waters, you've got a little bit more bug action as the sun rises. And it's a huge mistake if you're not out there getting on that early morning bite. In the summer, the bite can be really, really hard in the middle of the day when the weather is at its hottest and its warmest, and the waters are warming up significantly from the morning. That's when the trout start to get a little bit more lethargic and the bite tends to really, really slow down. When you get on that early morning bite, you have first crack at the water, you can be fishing all kinds of techniques, and hopefully, and for the most part, there shouldn't be a lot of other anglers out there if you're getting out there really, really early, especially to your really secret spot that you want to get to. Now, by going early, you should avoid all those fish and googans and get on a really good bite. They're coming in at mistake number 8. This has to do with flash and UV. And there is such thing as having too much flash on your lures and on your flashers when you're fishing for stock trout. And primarily, this really comes down to when you're trolling for stock trout and you've got flashers and dodgers and a lot of UV and glow and flash in the water. There is such thing as having too much flash. On really, really hot and really, really sunny days, that light is penetrating through the water a lot. So if you're having a lot of UV and a lot of flash down there, it actually could be a detriment and something that'll turn off the fish and the bite. For me, on those really, really sunny days, especially in the middle time of the day, I like to change to more UV colors and UV glows, especially on my baits. That'll be really helpful. But that chrome and that extra flash that you think that you need, you might be actually doing too much of that, and actually could be a big problem. And one of my favorite summer secrets is that UV glow types of bait. And there's plenty of different scents out there as well that have UV glow that can be really, really helpful. But what you gotta do is just avoid getting that UV glow all over your hands. Now, coming in at mistake number 7 is not changing your depth as you're fishing. And this can go as you're trolling, as you're fishing flies, spinners, baits under bobbers. It doesn't matter what type of bait or where you're fishing. You need to be changing your depth and moving your baits around to different locations. In the early parts of the day, the trout might be higher up in the water because you get those cooler temperatures, they're feeding on bugs and insects, so they might be higher and they might be shallower in the water. But as things really warm up, they're gonna go deeper and farther out. Now, they're gonna find that cooler water throughout the day as the water's warming up in those deeper types of sections. They're gonna find better cover, they're gonna get into the shade. So if you're just fishing the same spot over and over and over again and you're not getting any bites, the fish are moving around. They're moving in the water column, they're moving depth. So biggest cue is that as you're fishing and the bites start to slow down, if you're having a good bite, you need to change your depth and you need to change your location. Now, coming in at mistake number 6 is overlooking scented baits. And scent plays a big part in trout fishing in the summer. For the most part, I have a few scents that I really like to go to. The first being corn, because it fishes all year long, and stock trout, they eat corn-based meals at the hatchery. So duh, it makes sense to have corn scent and corn-based baits while fishing in the summertime, as well as all year round. The other one is garlic. Now, when it comes to garlic, it's stinky. You can smell it from a mile away. It is potent. Now, the other one being worm and nightcrawler. And Procure has a nightcrawler Procure gel that is really awesome to add to baits. And so if you don't want to fish nightcrawlers but use the nightcrawler scent, that's a game changer. And then lastly, we're talking about crawfish scent or crayfish. I don't know. Let me know how you pronounce it in the comments. Crayfish, crawfish, crawdad fish, whatever it is. But crawfish scent is a real good one. Again, like garlic, is super potent. You get it in the water and the fish can smell it from a long distance away. And I will say in alpine lakes in particular, crawfish is a great scent. So don't make the mistake of not getting scent on your baits, getting scent on your hooks, and especially overlooking scented baits. Now, coming in at mistake number 5 is fishing with too many bright baits. Now, in particular, I've seen anglers use super bright baits in the summer. Now, you're gonna catch some fish, but you're not gonna catch as many fish with those super bright baits all the time. If you want to be more consistent, tone down on your colors. Think a little bit more natural, especially fish that have been in there for 1 or 2 months prior to stocking that have been holdovers that haven't been caught yet. They're looking for those more natural colors, and not necessarily bright is going to be the best. And for me, I like greens, browns, blacks, but even whites are good colors to use. You can mix red in there a little bit as well. Orange is good, but also don't go overboard with too bright of orange to make it a little bit more natural color orange. But if you're just using the purples, the pinks, the chartreuses, the bright yellows, maybe you want to tone it down a little bit. That's okay. Now, coming in at mistake number 4 is using the wrong size of bait. In that spring to summer transition, that's when you should start using a little bit bigger baits. Again, the fish may be a little bit more aggressive in the summer with the warmer water and the warmer weather. You want to start using some bigger baits for bigger aggressive fish. However, there is such thing as overdoing it at times and having too big of baits. You want to find a happy medium, and sometimes I like to actually stay more on the smaller side lately when it comes to summer fishing. You don't have to have a giant golf ball size bait out there, a power bait, which I've seen somebody try to do before. Now, even over the course of a day, the size of bait that you change up can make a big difference. In the morning time, when it's a little bit cooler, you may want to go with a little bit smaller bait and then progressively get a little bit bigger and see if the fish want to see a bigger, brighter bait out there. And if you were like me as a kid, you just want to catch the lake record, you should go big or definitely go home. Now, coming in at mistake number 3, this has to do with bait again, and that is to not keep your bait cold. Now, this is really important with power bait, with eggs, with night crawlers. You need to keep your baits cool, because if not, they're gonna melt and they're gonna get mushy. Their textures are gonna change. Your night crawlers are gonna die. Your power bait texture is gonna completely change. Your eggs could wilt and go bad. You really want to keep your baits on ice or just cold, especially if you're fishing in the heat of day or you're fishing all day. And if you got no shade around, that's going to be a problem. You got to keep your baits as cool and cold as possible. I would recommend like going to a Goodwill or going to a store, find a really old cooler that you have, designate that as your bait cooler, throw a couple ice packs in there, and just keep it as cool as possible. Now, if you got worms in your cooler, definitely make sure you keep the lid on, because if you don't, you may end up with a worm sandwich for lunch, and that is not tasty. The coming in at mistake number 2 is overfishing a just stock trout spot. And here's what I mean by that. On lakes and bodies of water, you're gonna have your typical location where the stocking trout is gonna show up, and there's gonna be stock trout lingering around. Well, in the springtime, in the cooler waters, they're gonna stick more closely to where they've been stocked. But in the summer, if there's warmer water, those fish are gonna disperse a lot faster. So if you keep fishing and constantly fishing a just stocked spot and it's not performing well, there's probably not fish there, and they've probably spread out much faster. Now, of course, you wanna fish high percentage areas of stocked trout, and that's boat docks, boat launches. There's places where, again, where the stocking trout is gonna show up. But if you keep going there or fishing that spot, especially right after it's been stocked, it may not be as fruitful or as good that it typically is. Now, I know boat docks and boat launches are high stocked areas. The only reason why I would fish there in the summer is just to watch the shenanigans at the boat launch. And let me tell you, on some of those days, I got stories for days. So now we've gone through mistakes 10 through 2. Well, what is mistake number 1? Well, that is handling the fish too much. Now for stock trout, if you're keeping them, you're gonna put them on ice and put them in the cooler right away. But if you're catching and releasing, you wanna handle that fish as quickly as possible. Maybe snap a quick photo and get it back in the water and on its way. You don't wanna be handling it a ton, especially the bigger fish. You wanna keep your hands wet, of course, get them out of the net and get them on their way as quickly as possible. And of course, the biggest thing with stock trout, if you can keep them, then keep them and take them home, enjoy a nice summer meal with a cold one at home, and reflect on an awesome day of fishing. And there you guys have it, the top 10 summer stock trout fishing mistakes. Hope you guys learned something new today. Hopefully you found a new mistake that you're gonna avoid the next time you head out on the water and help somebody else avoid those mistakes and that big ticket from Fish and Wildlife. Now, if you're looking for more stock trout fishing or summer trout fishing content, I got a couple videos right here that are perfect to help you catch more trout in the summer. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and until next time, if you ain't losing gear, you ain't fishing.